Well, I basically like to believe that the U.S. and China will not succumb to hysteria about each other, and will have a sensible relationship, because I think it's good for both of us. And then I have a very personal element, which is one of my granddaughters was born in China. And so from a family point of view, I'd like to see good China-U.S. relations. In the Clinton administration, I was in the Pentagon working with Secretary Bill Perry, and the task he set for me was to supervise the East Asian Strategy Review. And the question was, how should we deal with the rise of China? And we had to design a strategy for that, which was published as the East Asian Strategy Review. And it basically said that we should engage China and invite them into the international system. And we basically did that when we invited China into the World Trade Organization. We had some good visits. I remember traveling with Secretary Perry to China, and we had some fascinating meetings. The defense minister then was Zhi Ha-tian, and he had fought in the Korean War, as so had Perry, so they were on different sides, but they got along very well, and we had some very nice banquets with Mao Tai, and which we talked about the better relations we expect in the future. Soft power is simply a fact of life. It's one aspect of power, the ability to get what you want through attraction rather than coercion or payment. And both China and the U.S. have soft power. I once wrote an article, a joint chapter in a book with Wang Jise of Beida, and he and I made the argument that soft power can be a win-win situation. That the more that U.S. officials and people find China attractive, and the more the Chinese people and officials find the U.S. attractive, the more that both sides can avoid conflict, the more we can have the background to trust each other and to cooperate on things where we have common interests, for example, climate change. Well, as we look at the future, we have to realize that there are two ways of thinking about power. One is power over others. I want you to do something that you don't want to do, and I use my power to get you to change. The other form of thinking about power is power with others. You and I both want to get something done, but neither of us can do it alone. But if we cooperate, we can. So I think one of the points that we have to realize is, yes, the U.S. and China have conflicts that relate to power over each other, but we also have a lot of areas where by cooperating with each other, we increase our power, each of us, together. And the perfect example of that is climate change. China can't solve the problem of climate change alone. The U.S. can't solve the problem of climate change alone. Working together, power with each other, we can do better. Well, I think the U.S. and China have found that they have areas where they can cooperate, that they don't pose existential threats to each other, and that we're bound to have disputes, but it's normal for countries to have disputes with each other. The question is to make sure the disputes don't escalate, and that requires constant statesmanship and communication to make sure that it doesn't get out of hand. And for the last 40 years, we've been able to do that. If we make the right efforts, I think we can do that for the next 40 years. Well, I'd like to see a relationship between China and the U.S. where what you might call normal relations. If you look at our relations with France, we don't agree with France on everything. But, with some areas we disagree, some areas we agree, but we get along in a normal fashion. And I'd like to see that in the case of China. I also think that China and the U.S. are going to have to learn to cooperate with each other if we're going to deal with some of these transnational issues. That means the U.S. has got to be less suspicious of China's intentions, and China has to be less suspicious of the U.S. intentions.